The orphanage was the most devastating experience of my life. It's difficult to speak about even today.
I grew up watching her depressed, anxious, and often dissociated from reality.
When my mother burned me with her cigarette, I learned not to complain.
I grew up watching her be a doormat. I learned that that's what being a woman looked like.
Whether you have experienced trauma yourself or opened up your social media account and seen the images of the latest natural disaster or the last mass shooting, you see, initially, the brain takes that in the same. To the brain, it can't tell the difference initially. Trauma's trauma. And then back here we have the limbic brain. The limbic brain is worried about one thing and one thing only, our survival. The limbic brain believes everything it's told. In fact, when we are born, it is completely intact. If the limbic brain is told that you are fat, ugly, not worth anyone's time, that you're boring, the limbic brain says, I got it. That's exactly what I need to know about myself. The brain has neural pathways. Some of them are crevices, some of them are deep canyons. And information flows down these neural pathways to inform us about how we behave in our lives, how we navigate our lives. You see, if our thought is, and our belief is, we are not good enough, what will we do? We will gravitate towards people that don't treat us well. And then we can tell ourselves, see, self, told ya, I'm not good enough. Switching over here to other thoughts is where the work is. Brain scans show that new neural pathways can be developed well into our 90s. There's hope in that. You see, where we start struggling in our relationships is right down here, where our experiences are, where our beliefs about those experiences are. See, we think we are arguing with people in our lives up here, and the results that we're getting from the people that we love, when really we should be focusing down here, because this is where the two icebergs are colliding. She was burned, she was caged, she was tortured, she was physically and sexually and emotionally abused, she was malnourished, and when the state finally stepped in and took her to an orphanage, you would think that is where the abuse ended. But it didn't. Jen, can you come to the stage and tell us more? So I hear you. There are a lot of questions today about the generational piece, and honestly, folks, that's something that we all have to look at in our lives, is what was passed down to us that we now need to figure out ourselves. And we're no different. You know, watching her struggle with PTSD when I was a child had an effect on me. I started washing my hands at 16, and I didn't stop for 2 years. Everything was contaminated. Everything had germs. It was definitely obsessive-compulsive disorder at its finest.
She was taking on the darkness that I couldn't face.
Exactly. And on the flip side of that, at 50, when she started doing the work and she's found her voice and I got to see her become a strong woman, that too had an impact. It told me and it formed me that I could do the same.
I've heard you both speak. You're both incredible. Shari, you do a case study about Jan and her tragic childhood and repressed memories as an adult. Jan, I've heard audiences gasp when you come out on the stage, and it is amazing when they find out that, number one, you are the woman in the story, you're here, and number two, you are Shari's mother. That's got to be so powerful for you.
Coming up on stage after they have heard my childhood and the details of that, they can see that I'm alive. And not only that, but I'm okay. And then I am bombarded with questions. My journey was difficult. There's no doubt about that. But by all of their questions, it becomes obvious to Shari and I both that they are hungry to hear how to navigate issues in their own life.
So I just saw Shari Simmons and her mom Jan Simmons speak what a talk. It was absolutely amazing. You got to hear not just Jan's story about her childhood and how she survived it, but how her daughter Shari took that childhood and learned from it and created a whole teaching around how trauma works and about the brain and about brain resilience. Unbelievable talk. It was so good. Everybody was crying, laughing. Jan is hysterical. Shari is so good on stage and such a knowledgeable speaker. Check it out.
There's so much power in owning your own story. While the journey might be a little bit uncomfortable, in the end, we become who we were intended to become.
That's what I mean by the strongest central nervous system wins. The question is that you? Are you the strongest central nervous system in your relationships?